Joining us right now from CNBC, Larry Kudlow joins us, as he always does, right here on Tuesdays. And Larry, before we get going on the economy and politics and Obamacare, I got to ask you, Friday, you signed off finally on your show on CNBC for the final time. What was it like?
Well, it was emotional, but very heartfelt, and I had some great friends surrounding me, and it was a great run. It was 9 years every night on my own solo, and then 3 years every night before that with my pal Jim Cramer.
Right.
And I just kind of wanted to talk to my viewers about somebody who believes in faith and freedom and who has been very blessed.
Can I play a little bit of it? Because it was really, really quite emotional. Take a listen to this.
I want to thank this network, not only for the privilege of hosting this show, but for giving me a second chance in life that resulted in a new career. This from a guy who nearly 20 years ago was completely shipwrecked on a sea of hopeless alcohol and drug abuse. And I went away for a long time, and with the help of many people, I learned to replace addiction with faith. And it is that faith that guides me every day.
You know, I didn't know that part of your story, Larry, I have to say.
Well, it's been out there for a while. I've never hidden that there was a lot of news coverage many years ago when I had a burn-in crash. At the time I was working on Wall Street, I was the chief economist at Bear Stearns, and things got pretty bad, and I wound up going up to the Hazelton Foundation up in the Center City, Minnesota. I was there for 6 months, and then my wife and I moved to San Diego County. Actually, one thing I didn't mention in that, but some friends know, when I got out of treatment, I had one job offer. And that was from my very dear friend and mentor, Art Laffer. And Art and his wife, Tracy, took us in San Diego, and I started to get better. It was a great year out there, a little more than a year. And then at that point, for some reasons that I probably will never understand but will leave to Providence, I started getting back not only into business as an economist, but CNBC, where I had been doing commentaries in the early stages of the network, began to call me. I remember doing an interview on the floor. Believe it or not, the Republican convention was out in San Diego in 1996. So I remember doing an interview on the floor of the convention, and then somebody else called me from CNBC and said, when you're back in New York, come on over. And one thing led to another, and I was back in the regular rotation as a commentator, and then one thing led to another, and Jim Cramer and I had our own primetime show, and that was great. I love the guy. We were terrible at the beginning, but we figured out how to do it, and then one thing led to another, and we each had our own shows. So it lasted a very long time, and that's one of the reasons that I'm very grateful.
It did, and I saw all of the tributes coming in on Facebook and on Twitter for you. That must have been really, really warm for you to see. And one of the things everybody, at least on my Twitter feed and my friends on Facebook, were commenting on is that you, right to the end there in your last show, you kept emphasizing how important freedom is to the economy. It seems to be a message that we're not hearing from this White House as they celebrate, quote unquote, the open enrollment period ending on Obamacare. Talk about Obamacare and what it means to our country's economy in the context of freedom.
Well, I've always felt, as a critic of Obamacare, I've always felt that, A, it had nothing to do with freedom or free market capitalism, primarily because of, B, these mandates. I think Americans should be allowed, should have the freedom to choose their own health care package. And whether that's just a catastrophic package or whether that's a funding of a health care plan, whatever it may be, the government should not force it down our throats. And depending on who you are, and where you are in life, whether you're a young person who you think is invincible, or whether you're middle-aged, or whether you're older, you're going to have different needs, and you ought to be able to get different policies from the insurance companies, and the government has no right to tell you and dictate to you what those policies are. And we are seeing the tremendous, tremendous unpopularity of these government mandates and controls. That's all they are. In fact, they're really price controls. And, we're seeing how impossible this central planning is with respect to doctors and hospitals and drugs and what network you're in. And I don't know what phony number is going to come out in April here, but it's going to be a phony number. I mean, I was just reading this morning, my pal, and you probably know Byron York very well.
Yes.
And Byron notes, as we all have, that these inflated numbers, now they're talking about 6 going on 7 million. I don't know what's in it, but so much of it's going to be people that are going on Medicaid who have lost earlier plans. Now, you could have gone on Medicaid at any time. You didn't need Obamacare for that. And the other one is you can live at home on your insurance policy until age 26. Well, that's not a bad idea, but you didn't need a massive system of controls to put that into place. In terms of the individual mandate, probably only a couple million people are going to have signed up. And of that group, we're not going to know for a long time how many of them really paid. We won't know that. And so this is just a perfect example, quite apart from the disastrous website. These are all examples of why the government cannot run aspects of the economy or the whole economy. And this is why we have the reason I'm an optimist is because of freedom. And that freedom, by the way, includes freedom at the polls to vote in and vote out who you care to. And I think you're going to see a lot of freedom to vote against Democrats this fall who put in this crazy Obamacare system.
Do you think that'll be an issue, by the way, that will actually resonate with voters? Because, Dave, that's the big question politically.
I think it's going to be a huge issue. I think the two big issues coming in November is going to be Obamacare and the gargantuan mess. By the way, it's an economic suppressant.
Right.
It's an economic wet blanket as well because nobody wants to hire. And two is the economy itself, which remains the worst post-war recovery. And unless there's a miracle in the next 4 or 5 months, in particularly the labor market area, most Americans,
right.
All these polls show, only about a quarter of Americans believe we're in a recovery. And, 3/5 or so believe we're still in a recession.
Right.
And I think that is because of the paucity of jobs and the fact that businesses are not investing. And I think that, in turn, is because of the uncertainties regarding high taxes and more regulations, which is, really part and parcel of the Obamacare, what I call central planning attempt. It doesn't work. This is America.
We'll have to leave it there, but your clarion voice for freedom and the free enterprise system will always be welcome here. You move into a new role as CNBC senior contributor, and of course can still be heard on the Larry Kudlow Show on WMAL Saturdays at 7 p.m.
Thanks to you, and thanks to both of you for having me on, being so helpful all these months.
We're big fans.
Thank you.